I'm Anna.
I'm Ben.
We're AutoSave. Welcome to our channel.
Today we're watching Jujutsu Kaisen, Season 2, Episode 18. Last episode, we had a pretty crazy fight between Sukuna and Maho Raga, who is one of the coolest, entities I think I've seen in Jujutsu Kaisen. Very scary as well.
It was a total surprise to us. We definitely were not thinking it was part of Megumi's technique.
Obviously, we knew something, like, Megumi had something. That's been alluded to so many times throughout the first season and up till now. But I guess I expected it to just be another animal.
Yes.
I don't know, but it was awesome. And I don't know if Sukuna beating it means it's beaten forever, if it's tamed, if it's what the deal is there.
Yeah. I don't know either.
Yeah, we also just ended with, Itadori realizing what has happened and a reaffirmation of his goals and what he needs to do to make up for this and make his life worth it.
Right. I had one thought leaving this episode. I hadn't thought about it until a couple hours after, that we're getting this idea coming out of last episode that both Megumi and Itadori are exceedingly strong and or special in this world, have great potential going forward, or reason to be kept alive by Sukuna, a purpose in this world, whether by a villain's perspective or someone like Gojo's perspective. And there's also an element of possible shared guilt and grief from what has happened last episode. Yes, like Sukuna was in Itadori's body. It's like an extension of both of them. Both Megumi and Itadori is what caused this like giant hole, if you will. An extension of both of them. They can share in this guilt together. They can share in the responsibility of making it worth it, the lives and the destruction that happened and were lost, and their potential and their purpose going forward. It's almost like, oh yeah, they're best friends and they did that together as best friends and now they're gonna also go forward.
It definitely gives me like a weight similar to Geto and Gojo that we saw at the beginning of season 2. You know, those two there's two people in the team who have this otherworldly ability,
It even takes me back to the first episode of season 1 where we get Megumi and Itadori really first meeting and their interactions.
Yeah. Before we get into the episode, though, we obviously don't, do a lot of social media stuff and stay outside of the realm of, anime news. But one of our good friends, Noah, was texting me the other day about Jujutsu Kaisen, which he very rarely does unless it's very broad in,
More just like, did you watch the episode?
Yeah. But he reached out to me because some behind the scenes, things are going on. And I love, giving appreciation and shouting out animators, or just more realistically, I like going scene by scene and looking at the detail that the animators are able to put in and how good their work is. And especially in this season, I feel like I've complimented or noticed how amazing the animation already has been.
How creative the choices are, but also just how amazing the animation has been.
But that made it even more surprising to me to hear that there are apparently a plethora of issues going on with MAPPA behind the scenes. Obviously, since we're trying to stay out of it, I'm not educated enough in the matter to speak on it, other than I don't know what the fuck is going on in terms of overbooking, in terms of trying to take on more than you can handle, splitting your animators up, whatever. But I believe that in Demon Slayer Season 2, the studio cleared their schedules to make sure that the animators had enough time and felt like they had enough room to breathe to be able to perfect everything to a level that they themselves were comfortable with the product on. And if what we've gotten from Jujutsu Kaisen Season 2, or at least half of it, has been rushed and has been produced at the detriment to the animators working on it, on one hand, I'm surprised because it's already been amazing and there have been so many episodes that are stand out. But on the other hand, I'm really disappointed. And I wish that they would just pause whatever it is and wait until the animators feel like they've had room and time and they have confidence enough in the time given to them that they're able to do what they are supposed to do, what they're capable, obviously, of doing. And it's a shame because, you know, this anime, Jujutsu Kaisen, whatever, this isn't an anime that we're going to watch right now and then put on a shelf and never look at it again. It's going to be something that's going to be revisited by generations and generations for the rest of history. And these animators' names are on it. And I wish that they were given everything they needed to be able to do what they want to do.
Put out the best product that they feel the happiest with without, as you said, a detriment to their own health.
It sucks because it's like, obviously they're capable of it. It's just, it's upsetting that companies or whoever's booking whatever or managing them are no fucking awareness of the culture around them.
Are not protecting them.
Yeah, it's upsetting. But regardless, I have loved every second of the work. If that is something going forward, that there's, you know, a difference in quality or whatever, I would be surprised, only because they've done such a good job already. But I understand that they're going through it. But without further ado, you ready to get into Jujutsu Kaisen?
Yes.
Episode 18. Let's go. Okay, that was Jujutsu Kaisen Season 2, Episode 18. So, the Nobara fight started at 11:16, and the Itadori fight was happening around 11:19.
Yep.
That's worrisome. It's not as big of a time difference as I was fearing, but there being any time difference...
Any time difference at all. I mean, how quickly... A fight could be turned for there being a victor at the end of it in only a couple minutes in this sort of universe, especially when we know it's Mahito and what we just saw with Nanami.
Yeah.
The moment Mahito touches her, it could be over literally in a minute or less.
Yeah. Granted, he is trying to keep her corpse. You know, that would at least give some credence to not a transfiguration until in front of Itadori.
But what did we just see right before he says he has this insurance? He says he knows how to effectively mess with Itadori's mental state by using two normal-looking people that he hasn't grotesquely, like, transfigured. And they almost still retain somewhat of their consciousness.
Yeah.
But then he's able to still, like, mold them and utilize them?
I think... Okay, is your interpretation still that there's two different Mahitos?
Yes.
And okay, cool.
I think that's why they showed us that clip of everyone splitting off who's gonna find Itadori. I think that if they hadn't shown us him splitting off and then us getting this with Nobara, it would have been kind of like a, why are you putting this here? This is more like a Juju stroll kind of after, kind of supposed to be funny because Jogo is like, no, and runs into the wall of transfigured human.
So funny.
Haha, you know, funny in a horrible, grotesque way. Just more like taking you out of what was currently happening in terms of like tension and tone. But I think that the real purpose of that was to not only highlight that Mahito is the last available of the ones that were searching for Itadori, and reminding us that his goal is to kill Itadori, and where Jogo's was the opposite, and the one that is still alive or still fighting is the one that wants to play with Itadori, ruin him mentally, and then kill him.
Remember how naive we were a few episodes ago when we were like, which one is Itadori gonna fight?
Yeah.
It's been all of them. Dude, I felt like very early on in the episode with how it was pacing itself and how great the sequence of Nanami was with the interchanging, you know, walking and the visions on the beach, the serenity. I think that very early on, I was like, okay, you do this to kill a character, right?
Yeah.
But I don't know if I've ever seen a character that I've loved and and cared so much for that's been reoccurring in a show get absolutely obliterated in the way that they showed Nanami get obliterated. Like, typically I would imagine, okay, you introduce a character that, you know, is lovable, and then we've watched shows where they've been on screen for a little bit of time, and then they're gruesomely murdered in front of us and we see their dead body. Or we've seen shows that it's a more lovable character that has been around a longer time, and yes, they get killed or die, but the way that death is shown is a little bit more censored because of how long we've known that character, I guess. Whatever reason, that typically is how it plays out, though. This was fucking horrific. Seeing Nanami's hand with his blade after his death was one of the most gruesome things I've seen in a character that's in that genre that Nanami is for me.
So not only this, so okay, I just gotta say it. I've never ranked my favorite anime men, but Nanami is definitely in the top 5.
Was.
Okay, a little too soon for that. He is in the top 5, and therefore this episode really hurts because I love Nanami. He's in my top 5 hot anime men list that I love and that I would probably get a figure of or something.
You think they sell that as a figure?
The just the torso, like the bottom half of him and then the hand.
Yeah.
No, I would think they would pick a different thing to make a figure because they want it to sell.
Yeah.
Do you think people would buy that?
No.
I feel weird.
Do you think right Mahito did it intentionally to, like, look like this? Like, do you think Mahito intentionally left Nanami's right arm, like, visible with his blade?
Interesting. I think that could be a choice in terms of, like, a very visual reminder that this is not just, especially when, okay, if you think about it, you're surrounded by a bunch of technically dead bodies.
Yeah.
All around, dead humans all around. To keep an identifying visual representation of this body being specific and important in particular across all of this blood and gore that is on this scene, I think is definitely effective for what we know is Mahito is attempting to play with Itadori's mind, his mental state.
Yeah. I'm really upset about Nanami's death. I think that in my mind he had some semblance of plot armor because we hadn't seen the blade unwrapped, you know, like you know. Mm-hmm. I was hoping we'd somehow see him reach a domain expansion someday. And I am devastated. And I don't know what to do going forward in terms of facing Mahito. Because, like, if it's just a flat-out fight like we had, and Nobara's not in the question, I can say things like, okay, Itadori has been handling this fight amazing. He isn't letting rage take over him. He's being smart about his, like, decision making. Hell, he could somehow end up in the same place, pick up Nanami's blade and use it himself. Like, it could go down that route. But the idea of Nobara being involved in this is very scary to me.
So if we're gonna talk about, like, nails in the coffin, Nobara uses the nails. The first nail in the coffin for Nanami dying in this arc, this fight, was his conversation with Nobara, was him saving her and telling her to not join in to the rest of the fighting, that he was the bottom line in terms of strength.
The bare minimum.
The bare minimum in terms of strength going forward. Him identifying to the audience that even he is not necessarily equipped or strong enough to be going against what we're going against in this episode was the first nail in the coffin for him. And then just going forward, we're seeing more and more foreshadowing or strikes against him in terms of, like, slowly building that plot that the viewer won't necessarily be so free. It's not this was not supposed to be a major surprise, at least in terms of the tone and how they were handling the episode. This wasn't meant to be like a jaw on the floor surprise to the audience that Nanami dies here. At least that's not how it felt for me. It felt like the whole episode was a serenade to the last moments of this character.
Yeah.
And especially with we get him walking at the end of the episode before this, as soon as I saw that, I was like, this is a person that's like on death's door. Like that is the vision that he had, like incredibly strong and awesome to see him still walking. But then we get a look into the mental state at the beginning of this episode for Nanami and what he's envisioning, where he sees himself. He's already in the threshold between life and death here with what we're seeing from internally for him, and then what his not even just what he visually looks like, but what's happening internally for him.
What do you think happens with Nobara?
So that is terrifying. I know we brought up the times, and we've brought up that there is enough time for something to have happened to her for her to be an insurance, an effective way to mess with Itadori. I love Nobara, and it's like that moment that we saw her, I think for all of the fights in this episode, and then that fight is a great example, I couldn't be hyped for it. I couldn't be like, oh yeah, like super in the fight, because I know what the fight means.
Yeah.
And I know that there's these other undertones, like emotional tension that I can't ignore. Like when we were watching Mahito and Itadori, I could not ignore the feelings that I just went through over Nanami's death. Like I couldn't be in this fight because I had this overwhelming feeling of, wow, what we just saw for Nanami, and that moment that he had in terms of the killing off of that character was so powerful that it like carried into the fight. And then when we get to Nobara, I'm still in this point where I can't, once I see that it's her, and we heard the lines from Mahito to Itadori right before we see her, it's like that carried into there's no feelings of hope there. There's only the feelings of the reverberation, similar to Itadori at the beginning of this episode, that repetition and reverb of all those lines of dialogue that were said over the course of 2 seasons. That's what was happening as soon as Mahito said about the insurance that he has.
I'm happy that you bring that up, because one of the lines that we had from the beginning of the episode that Itadori was remembering was his line to Nobara about killing people at the end of the last episode of season 1. And
some of the last lines that we were getting as he was turning the corner, or we're about to hear the fighting, were Nobara, and I think Megumi was a few of them too.
Yeah.
And Nanami, I think.
I want to say, like, I wanted to say right when Nobara came on screen, Nanami was enough. Like it was, you don't have to bring Nobara into it too, dude.
But you had to, because, unfortunately...
I fucking hate Mahito.
Yeah,
he's such a great character, and I despise him and that shows how great he is. Yeah. I think that the moment...
There's multiple levels of despising this character. Not only is he creepy in terms of, like, the ability and how he contorts his body into these really creepy, grotesque ways, but...
I think my appreciation for his character definitely went up this episode, as fucked up as it is to say, because I had this, like, baseline of, like, okay, he's creepy as fuck, his abilities are creepy as fuck, he has this, like, whimsical, childlike nature about him that adds to that, like, sadistic nature of him. But I think that the standout moment this episode from Mahito, other than killing Nanami, for me this episode, was his awareness of what he was doing to Itadori. Like, I didn't realize he had that level of, like, premeditation towards somebody like Itadori,
like, we thought he just wanted to go kill Itadori, but we're hearing in this episode that there's so much more that he wants to do.
Yeah, and how he was going to approach it. Like, how he's really trying to utilize all the tools in his kit to break him.
Mm-hmm.
It's
And it's not just tools and tricks in order to achieve a win in the fight. It's tools and tricks in order to hurt this person the most possible. Like, he does not need to bring Junpei into this scenario in terms of, like, effective, like, actually fighting. Like, he's already, they're going back and forth. Itadori's doing really well in that fight as we're, like, crammed in the small space.
Yeah.
But all of these tricks that Mahito's doing, he's incredibly resilient. He doesn't necessarily need to be playing mental games here at the moment, other than to get his desired effect.
Yeah.
From Itadori.
I wanted to go over some of the lines that Mahito said after one of his first, coming to blows with Itadori this episode. When Itadori's saying, how can you possibly toy with countless of people's lives over and over and over again? Mahito turns around, looks at him, puts his hand out and says, would you be satisfied if I counted off each one of my fingers? I'll start doing it with that one next. I'll grant you a simpler answer since you're such a simple guy. Yuji Itadori turning his hand into fucking Junpei. Awesome. Thank you. You're great, Mahito. You are me. How do you take that?
Okay. You are me. And then he's like, it's just a curse is nonsense. But that's not true, because then he goes on to say, however, until you're willing to accept that, you can't beat me.
It's like, I understand the nature and origin of Mahito as a curse, and I'm assuming that's what he means to some degree, and what he's referring to. But the you are me thing is very, I don't know.
So there's a confrontation that internally inside Itadori that Mahito's wanting to happen. He's wanting Itadori to face and confront the fact that, in a way, he himself is also a curse upon this world.
Yeah.
That without Itadori's ability... So, what Itadori is in the availability to be this vessel for Sukuna, not only is he this possible blessing for the world, he's also a possible curse for the world. He could go either way and no one truly knows. It's unpredictable. Will he be able to completely adapt to all of the fingers to the point that then Gojo can get rid of Sukuna for good? Or will Sukuna achieve this vessel and come back to being alive in this world? Yeah. He could either be a curse or a blessing here, and I think that Mahito's really wanting him to confront this fact that, I am a curse in this world who is trampling over lives and doing things for whatever reasons and motives that I have, but you are the same.
I think that a route that I never thought Jujutsu Kaisen would go down is that mental breaking route. It reminds me of something like Mob Psycho, of that internal battle of will, because when it's somebody like Itadori who is the face of smile, thumbs up, it'll be okay, we'll find a way, it's such an interesting route to take it, to just really, really push it to its limit and see if it breaks. I get it. I got it from Sukuna, right? That alone was horrifying and devastating at the end of last episode. Itadori realizing what his own body helped him doing.
His hands, yeah.
But seeing just the stress test of his head right now is, one, really interesting, but it's scary.
I think that it's very it grabs our attention, and I think we understand it even more because the nuance of at first getting this idea of it with Nanami's death scene.
Yeah.
In terms of the mental state, in terms of the actual death, I'm saying the acceptance of what is about to happen. We have really important lines from Nanami about not wanting to curse anyone. He doesn't want to leave this world putting a curse on anyone, but he is fully aware here that there's nothing left that he can give and can do here. And possibly even he would know or would think that his death here has purpose and meaning because of who is witnessing it. Who in the room does he not want to put a curse on, but wants the best for and believes in, and that that person being in this room witness to his death, they're going to avenge him. And there is when we get that like look over the shoulder, you know, and we kind of pan
after the
and
pointing
we pass
from Haibara,
Mahito and we see him see Itadori, we're getting this character come to a place of acceptance, but also not wanting to put pressure on Itadori. Like, I mean, like a gross pressure. Like, Itadori's obviously going to want to avenge his friends and get back at Mahito. Mahito's just stacking up the bodies in that regard in terms of, like, who Itadori wants to avenge. But Nanami's not putting extra pressure here. There's something more soft and caring that's happening here. It's much more like an acceptance, a love, a care. I believe in you. Like,
yeah, I think Nanami's arc as a character, I mean, I'm still kind of in disbelief that he's dead. It's hard for me to like accept it, but if I am, his introduction being that with Mahito and showing up at the theater with Junpei and it ending here and coming full circle here, it's great. It's fantastic. I'm sad to see it go, and I'm upset. I'm like mad. It's not like, oh, I'm so sad that this character died, and I wish I had that. I wish I could like mourn for one of my favorite anime characters right now, but all I'm left with is fucking rage. I want Todo to show up. I want Gojo to fucking get out of his seal. I want him to learn that Nanami died from this piece of shit. I want Gojo to rip his soul into multiple different parts.
It's what we're getting here is no actual time or energy from the show being created for the purpose of mourning.
There is no time.
A character for a viewer. And I've seen across all the shows we've watched, we've watched some shows with death, and there are times where they give that time and energy and the music or other characters, they create this moment that really breeds the grieving and the emotions coming out of the viewer. There's a few times on the channel that I've like actually cried from certain deaths or possible deaths that we were watching, but that's a marriage between my emotional connection to the character, but also what mood they're creating for me in the show. The atmosphere. But there are also times, like in this whole arc of Jujutsu Kaisen, where there isn't time for that. Because of the situation we're in, the fight we're in, the fact that this has been like one night, there is no time to be grieving anyone yet or be too worried about someone's current status in terms of alive or dead or injured. There's no time for that because Gojo is still sealed. The moment that Gojo was sealed, there has been no time for anything. And the viewer, we can't. They're also like twisting the knife a little bit with their choice of the score. So they're twisting the knife with the choice of the score during the Mahito and Itadori fight because they're not making it this action-packed, coming to blows. We're hearing a bunch of, like, attack sounds, but the music is ramped up. We're not getting that. The music also has this weird, unsettled tone to it, where it's like they're twisting the knife. They're like, you want to cry, you want to grieve. We're kind of letting you feel like you could if we gave you that, but we're not going to give it to you. So they're, like, keeping you right there where you're like, I can't be super into this hype action right now, but you're not letting me.
Yeah.
It's
but they
it's
do the
like
same
right
thing.
here, and like the tip of your tongue or like the top of your throat. It's like it's keeping it there, but it's not letting it come out.
They do the same thing with the ending with Nobara. Like, I think that's a continuation of it. It's like, oh, we're not done yet. Like,
Yeah.
the episode's over, but there's something on the table that
And they're
might
doing that
still
so
get cut.
effectively.
Yeah.
In terms of like, this is better in terms of cliffhanger, because cliffhanger is like normally just this suspense of, oh, what's going to happen next? Oh, I don't know, question mark. But what they're doing here is they've left us in this feeling and they haven't settled it yet. They've left us in this emotion that feels very unnatural to us normally, and they're leaving us in this state. And then they're just like, okay, bye, stay like that until next week.
Usually, I'd think after they, like, a show or a story would kill off a character as significant as Nanami, I'd be like, okay, other people are safe for a little bit. But by the means of how they killed Nanami, I am not at all confident in Nobara's safety.
It could be the mark of... it could be the mark of now we're going to be seeing actual death. We've gotten so far.
You said in the fucking, what? In the intro, a character needs to die. Thanks, Anna. This wouldn't have happened if you didn't say that.
I made this happen. But it is true that we've now gotten to the point in the fighting that the last ones standing are the ones that are the most fearsome in terms of foes. I think that more deaths would have happened if Sukuna didn't take over Itadori's body and was the one fighting, say, Jogo or Maharaga. I think more deaths could have possibly happened.
Yeah.
Maybe even if Choso hadn't been the one that came across Itadori, more deaths could have happened. But the way things have played out and who came up against who, we are now at a point where I'm like, people could actually die and I should not be surprised. And I mean, by people, I mean Jujutsu sorcerers are like characters that we follow. There's been a lot of people that have died.
The thousands of humans who have been turned transfigured, who have been slaughtered in front of Gojo to fuck with his mental. One of my favorite things this entire season, I think series, this arc has been so amazing at giving us unique settings for fights. Like, the elevator sequence in this episode is fantastic.
You do the elevator, but you did the cramped, like, the wall caving in, like, Indiana Jones. I don't think I've ever seen a fight in anime that's so creative. That, like, is, like, pushing up into a claustrophobic area with close combat. It's awesome. I mean, I've possibly seen tense fights in elevators.
Yeah.
But I would say this, like, walls closing in, that's already being utilized in movies and shows as a tense situation that feels like you're going to die by this inanimate object closing in on you. But to have a fight in that same time period, but also one of the walls is something that we get Itadori not even wanting to touch or break through when he first sees the wall at the beginning of this fight with Mahito. We have that, like, reminder, because the wall's talking to him, like, save me, save me. We know that he doesn't want to be, like, actually breaking through this. And so he's being almost trapped between, like, an actual wall and then a mental wall.
Yeah. There were a lot of great shots with low light, the fucking kiss knife.
Kiss. We gotta talk about the kiss part. Was one of my favorites. It was one of my favorites in this episode.
You want to know why it's so good too? It's so fucking in character for Mahito. It's amazing, and I hate it.
I wrote it down, and I noticed that I think that you were writing at the same time. I think both of us really liked that moment.
God.
Also, just the voice actor.
He closes his eyes too.
The sounds that Mahito's voice actor makes are so good, too.
So, do you think that you noticed anything in regards to the animation and what we talked about in the intro?
So, unfortunately, I don't know if anything that I noticed was because I was acutely aware of possible issues and or possibly subconsciously looking for it.
Well, and that's the thing.
Or if there was anything.
We're inherently biased because we were told that there could be something, right?
Where we were operating, thinking that, being very impressed before and noticing what we thought was what probably was actual love and blood, sweat, and tears.
Yeah. It's like trying to play. It's like you're shown a picture of a crowd, and then you're sat down looking at it, and then in another iteration you're sat down and said, find Waldo in this picture of people in a crowd. We're obviously a bit tainted in that regard. That being said, if I had to make a guess at where the godlike animators had to put most of their time and then work backwards, I imagine, just from the production side of things, with what little knowledge I have, you take your storyboarding elements, you go forward with those elements, especially in terms of action sequences, and what's saved for last might be the bridging. Mm-hmm. Like that's the term I know for it, but the one frame of storyboard to another, that, okay, this fight is ending in this spot and starting in a different spot, and that bridging of
getting
where
from
that
one kind of sequence to another. Yeah,
that's where I would, if I had to like place a bet, I would imagine that's the like last thing you touch on when you're given no time. Mm-hmm. It's so difficult because you and I were talking about the animation. I don't even know what to call it. In regards to this show, after we first heard that there was any type of issue with it from our friend Noah, because we're
privately in person.
But we don't know a lot, and we didn't want to ask a lot because we try to stay away from that. But in talking about it, like in between the two of us, when we're just trying to guess and try to understand how somebody wouldn't give them enough time, my best guess was that you're given X amount of time, or a little bit before the first episode airs. Within that time, you work your way through all the episodes that you can to your own, until you're happy with it. And that only gets you so far because of the limited schedule they gave you. So even though episode 1's airing, episode 18 might not have been started yet. Episode 15 might not have been started yet. And it's just week after week, you're trying to progress to get to the finale of the series or the season with keeping your own standards like up there, and then time just catches up because they didn't give you enough and they're just making you work overtime. Yeah. That's my best guess.
On a simple way to talk about it, I mean, it's very prevalent in a lot of different creative mediums at the moment, in terms of like for a consumer or a viewer, for us to be getting products where we know that the developers, the team, the animators, the creators of what people that actually built it for you and made it pretty are not really given the time that they need, and or being able to voice to the public that they need more time, or being let by the CEO or the developers that they're given the time that they need to actually give you the finished product. And in terms of like video games, I've recently, from not even big name studios, have had video games where they say that it's finished, they push it off for a while, they say that it's going to be done at this date, you play it, and then you realize that there's still a bunch of patches that they're going to be doing after that point with stuff that is a part of the patches that should have been a part of like the game upon release. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of like, why wouldn't you just wait until that was done? Like I'm tired of being given things that I'm excited for and happy for, and as a creative, knowing that the people that were working on it weren't actually given the time they need. Like, it's a multi-level disappointment there, because like I'm disappointed as a viewer and a consumer, but I'm also disappointed as a creative and someone who respects people's work and wants them to be given the time that they need and not overworked or in any unfortunate or uncomfortable circumstance.
It baffles me to a certain extent when trying to think and talk about that, because I do my best to try to think about like different perspectives people are in regards to that, and the people who are making the idiotic decisions, whether in anime, TV, or video games, like you brought up. It seems to be an ongoing trend of disillusionment that people are prioritizing a release of something as a title rather than the substance within that release. I think that from like a business standpoint, it's idiotic, right? Because yeah, you're releasing it as quick as you would like, and you're getting the immediate reaction or seeing the immediate profit of, like, in terms like a video game, right? You're getting those initial sales, but what you're ignoring is the reoccurring value, right? The people who are going to come back, regardless of what medium you are using. The best way to go about that is to, on all facets, make your consumer happy with the product. And in terms of video games, if you give them everything they could want it more on launch, then when you announce that DLC, then people are going to be very happy and passionate to buy it. Whereas if you release an unfinished product and then offer a DLC to include what should have been included at the start of the game, then people are going to be pissed off because they didn't get what they should have. And in terms of animation, I hate the idea that before that, hearing this, MAPPA was a level of standard in recent years, because we just really took a dive into anime with the channel. Like, things that I've seen from MAPPA, I was very impressed with and very happy with, but it just shows the true colors of the people who are, behind the scenes working, the people who make an amazing product to death.
I think that what it shows is a lack of respect for both the audience that you're trying to reach and trying to give a product to, but also the people that are creating that product. I think it's a betrayal of both parties, and disingenuous, and honestly pretty gross. In all of the different situations we've talked about here, whether from video games and putting out DLCs of things that should have been included at the beginning, in all of the mediums, from animation, TV shows, video games, I think that lately I've been noticing a reoccurring theme getting even stronger of a disrespect, a willingness to disrespect both who you have in your workforce to create this thing and your audience and your consumers.
I mean, we've mentioned people that we know in the animation industry, CG industry, but we have a few friends in the video game industry as well. And like, knowing behind the scenes shit of the lack of, like what you just talked on, respect for not only it's interesting because before, like, interacting with friends that we have, I would have been like, okay, you can easily say lack of respect for the employees, right? You are not only working them overtime, but you are cutting what they deem is their bar for quality and comfortableness, and putting their name on something. But holy shit, the manipulation that goes on with with contact with consumers, and the lies industries put out, and like fake, like, okay, it's going to be out at this date. It's already gotten this amount of work. It's already 80% done, when it's like only in reality 20% done. It's just fake promises.
Like, one of the games that I'm waiting on, I've been waiting for a really long time for it. It had the date that it was supposed to be fully done kept getting pushed back, and I'm totally okay with that. Why? Because I want to play a finished game that I'm excited about playing. And I have other things I could be doing. There are other games. There are other shows to watch. There are other things to do. I have other passion projects. I'm not like, oh my God, I'm going to be so bored until this comes out. But I'm just excited for the finished product to be done and it to come out. And I was okay with there being, oh, they said it would be coming out in October. It didn't come out in October. Now they're saying it'll come out in November. Okay. And then when it came out, I expected, after you already were willing to say there was going to be delays, for that to be completely finished. If you were already going to keep delaying it, honestly. Because then what they did was they put out a game, and it is not complete. It is not only... It doesn't even count as a DLC, what would be coming out. It is stuff that should have been a part of the finished game. Like, I've bought DLCs for games before. I bought the DLC for Fire Emblem Three Houses. What was that? extra content that didn't have to do with the main storyline. That's okay. But things that are a part of the actual core gameplay and mechanics, that is not stuff that you can just be adding in later after you've full released the game.
It's like two of the perfect video game examples are Elden Ring and Tears of the Kingdom, right? Those are the two most known and I think are the best examples of delaying for quality. And it's like it shows itself over and over again that people still talk about Elden Ring like every single day and replay it every single day. And Tears of the Kingdom is nominated for one of the best games of the year right now. Rightly so, because developers were like, nope, this isn't to our standard, and they delayed it, and everybody is proud of the product at the end of the day because of it.
We're like Baldur's Gate.
Oh my god.
Baldur's Gate is, I mean, that game, you can just, it feels like they were given the time that they needed to make this thing.
That's
amazing.
Actually, Anna, a hotly debated topic when it comes to the second and third act.
Oh,
Yeah.
Okay. See, I haven't gotten past the first act,
Yeah.
so I'm speaking with very little actual gameplay knowledge.
Yeah. Regardless of which side of the debate I lean on, I'll wait until you're up to Act 3 to answer.
Ooh, okay.
But I don't know. This has been we've gotten a little
We
bit
got
off
a
the
little
rails.
off topic, but I think that the point of what we're talking about is that we want people to be given respect, whether that is people creating something or the consumer themselves that would be buying or viewing the product.
We're so morally unique, and
we
want people
so
to have
special
respect.
with our point of view here and our perspective. It's unlike anyone else's. Yeah. So we just want people to be given, respect, time, and love, especially with these creative projects that we as viewers are excited about. Like we want to know that there was love in it, and we want to know that the people behind it that worked on it were happy to be doing it, but not only happy but healthy while they were doing it.
Just imagine being like a little kid watching Jujutsu Kaisen. Okay, maybe not a little kid watching Jujutsu Kaisen. But a little kid watching Dragon Ball Z, right? And you're like, oh my god, this is so special to me. I love this animation studio who's doing this. They made my childhood. It's my dream to work for them and like inspire thousands of kids. You get there, you're hired, and it is the most toxic work environment ever that breeds animators wanting to torture themselves because they are getting treated so horrifically. That's awful. And I hate that seems to it could be the case. We don't know enough.
Yeah.
But I love Jujutsu Kaisen, and I think that it's a great show, and I enjoy watching it, and most of that, if not all of it, is due to the animators. I'm sure that I would love the manga as well, but I've only watched the anime, and it's been brought to life by amazing animators, and after the season's done, I'm going to be sure to look into all of the names.
We could be totally ill-informed in terms of the actual intricacies and what's actually going on. And so I think that just what we've said, the main takeaway is that what we hope and wish is that they're in healthy environments, in healthy workplace, non-toxic, and able to create to their what their quality bar, what they feel good about putting their name on. And at the end of the day, we love Jujutsu Kaisen, and we love what we've seen from the animation. So regardless of whether it was the top bar of quality, we've been really enjoying this season.
To sum it all up, be nice to people. Baldur's Gate 3 is good. We're really making waves. All right.
And Jujutsu Kaisen is a show.
Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and we hope to see you next time.